Before the season started, many considered him the #1 high school prospect. In the middle of the season, he was considered to be a high-tier lottery pick. But at the end of the season, as we're less than a week away from the NBA draft, Nick Smith Jr. could fall all the way to number 13, where the Toronto Raptors are selecting. So in this video, we cover everything you need to know about the player and if he's the right fit for Toronto, if he's available at their spot. Let's get into it. Welcome everybody to Amateur Hour Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content in videos just like this. As we get closer and closer to the NBA draft, I'm working hard to produce draft profile content just like this, and there are a few more on the way before we get to that June 22nd draft day. So if you like what you see from today's video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and hit that notification bell as well so you know exactly when the videos are coming out. But today's draft profile is specifically dedicated to Nick Smith Jr., who has been touted to have superstar potential, and based on what I'm seeing, that superstar potential really is there. As far as the upside goes with many of the players in the draft, Nick Smith Jr. is very high on that list, but the issues do arise because his floor is also lower than some other players. So the range of outcomes with Nick Smith Jr. is much wider than some other players that we have spoken about on this channel. But before we go any further, let's get into exactly who Nick Smith Jr. is. So Nick Smith Jr. just turned 19 and he is a big point guard. 6'5" with a 6'8" wingspan. Not quite as big as yesterday's coverage of Jalen Hood-Schifino, but still, the age, the upside, the size, it's certainly intriguing for the player who just came out of his freshman season at Arkansas. Unfortunately, injuries hampered his first season, which may have caused some of the lack of production that we are going to see. But like I said, he was touted as the very best player in high school by many people. And despite not having a great season, which we're going to cover, he should still be very high on many people's draft boards for the upside that this player has. But let's look at exactly what those statistics were and go through why some people are alarmed by what they saw in that freshman season once again at the Arkansas Razorbacks. So from a scoring standpoint, 12.5 points per game is fine. It's not bad, but 12.5 points per game when you're only adding in 1.7 assists and 1.6 rebounds, especially for that size, that is a little bit more alarming. Like, what he wanted to do this season was be a scorer, and we're going to see that. And he wasn't even that prolific of a scorer either. And when we see the efficiency numbers here, I mean, these are just really tough to look at. From a field goal percentage standpoint, 37.6. That's not very good. And the three-point percentage, I can live with 33.8. He took about 4 3-pointers per game, so that 3-point percentage definitely doesn't make up for the field goal percentage that we saw, and especially the 2-point percentage. Like yesterday, I voiced my concerns of Jalen Hood-Schifino shooting under 45% on twos. Oh my God, Nick Smith Jr. shot under 40% on twos this season. That is an incredibly alarming stat for the player, but he's very high on a lot of people's draft boards. And you know what? I spoke about the wide range of outcomes for Nick Smith Jr.'s career. There's a very wide range of outcomes where he could get drafted. Like, I could seriously see this guy still going right around 10th in the draft. I could see this guy legitimately falling down to 20s in the draft as well. But the superstar potential remains, and there is so much upside for the strengths that we're going to go into here. First of all, the athleticism. When it comes to upside, when people talk about upside or lack thereof, basically, we all know that these guys are capable basketball players. The athleticism for some of these guys is what takes them to the next level. Look at the Thompson twins. Not the most polished game for Amen or Osar Thompson, but the upside is there for the size and athleticism, and that is what is there for Nick Smith Jr. that provides so much intrigue. He's very explosive off the first step and generates separation with that athleticism, allowing him to have he has the tools to be a 3-level scorer. He's not afraid to let it fly from deep. Not at all. He's not afraid to shoot in mid-range. He's not afraid to take his shots on the inside. There are certainly some tendencies there that could project him as a 3-level scorer. He has the tools to be able to do it. It's about the execution, and it's about the efficiency, which we're going to go into when we get into the weaknesses. But further down the list, he's also showing some signs of being an off-ball scorer. He's a good cutter. He's good at freeing himself open for 3 off the ball as well. So this guy is here to score the basketball. He is definitely somebody focused on putting the ball in the cup and being a scorer. He was touted as one of the very best prospects coming to the season, and He treated himself like it. He wanted to be the scoring player for the team. And with all these athletic traits, these scoring tools, this projects him as a player with a ton of upside. You can also add in the defensive stuff. The defensive tools are there for the player as well. He's a willing defender. He puts in effort over there. I know that, I described him like somebody who wanted to be the scorer, but he's there to help the team. He's there to work hard. He's not a selfish player when it comes to the way he plays on the defensive end. So he's out there to help his team. He's willing to work for the wins for his team. And with all these things considered, with the draft age, he just turned 19, there is a lot of upside. There is superstar potential within this player because the athletic traits would provide that. But how has he fallen so sharply on many people's draft boards? And why am I using the word tools and upside so often with his strengths? Well, let's go into his weaknesses. Tankathon kind of did him dirty. They only have 2 positives listed for Nick Smith Jr., and there are a lot of negatives, and for very obvious reasons. They don't really look at athletic traits on that. They just look at statistical stuff. But yes, the statistical stuff is a big problem. I mean, first of all, Nick Smith Jr., the shot selection just needs to be better. Like, under 40% on twos is just diabolical. Diabolical for a player who's considered in the first round, let alone somebody who has genuine lottery considerations. And the efficiency as a result of this shot selection is just not good. The mid-range shot selection is really bad, really poor. He gets in mid-range and takes his shot rather than trying to fight his way to the rim. Even when there is a very moderately difficult opportunity to get to the rim, that's a more efficient shot than shooting in mid-range, but he settles far too much. That has a big effect in the shot selection and has a big effect on the efficiency, as we also saw with the statistical categories. Part of the reason why he doesn't get on the inside, perhaps, is the lack of physicality. He's not the most physical player. He can really get banged up when he's going in through the lane as he's trying to get to the rim. That also causes some inefficiency at the rim, and we really saw the inefficiencies again with that 2-point percentage, which I really am struggling to get over. Like, that is just such a bad number to see on this guy's stat sheet. Playmaking is also a problem. I mean, when you're not the most efficient scorer and you're a point guard, wow, 1.6, 1.7 assists per game was it? He just was not a player looking to pass the ball. Passing for Nick Smith Jr. was more of a last resort sort of thing. It wasn't like he's going out there and try and make plays, look for the best play. He's going out there to score, and if that doesn't work, okay, now we're going to try and find a pass. And he doesn't really chip in on rebounding either. 1.6 rebounds per game for a guy who's 6'5". Wow, like not really doing himself many favors here. And what we saw from Nick Smith is not a point guard. Like, he's listed as a point guard, shooting guard. He's listed predominantly as a point guard. What we saw is not a point guard. This is a shooting guard, and the size appeal isn't really there as much when you consider him as a shooting guard rather than a point guard, because his handles are fine, but he is not there to play make. He is not there to run the offense. He is there to score. And with that all in consideration, like, his feel for the game is just not there. He's not a great basketball IQ player. You see it watching him. He's gifted with a skill set of creating space and shooting. The scoring wasn't quite there. And, I know there was an injury. I know there was an injury that kept him out for 2 months, which maybe limited his potential. But the feel for, you got to be able to see the feel for the game. That is not injury related. You got to be able to have that feel for the game. And you also, the injury doesn't make up for the fact that if this guy wasn't scoring, you couldn't have him on the court. It was tough for a player who was they're considered to be their best player. He got outshined by Anthony Black. Anthony Black has shot up draft boards. And I made a video about draft prospects in February where I wanted to talk about Nick Smith Jr. He's going to go above the Raptors. There's no point of even talking about him in a video. Now we're in serious discussions like Nick Smith Jr. could end up in the 20s in the draft. I think low 20s is his absolute max because somebody will gamble on that potential, but there was a definitive lack of feel for the game, and with the inefficient shooting, he wasn't adding in with playmaking, he wasn't adding in with rebounding, and the defense wasn't enough to really warrant keeping him on the court. It's just, the skill set was there. He should be your best player. You did have to keep him on the court, and that's maybe why Arkansas didn't quite achieve the levels they wanted to. They had a great March Madness, but didn't quite achieve the levels that maybe were expected from them as a nice national title contender at the start of the season. So with all this information, what is the best player comparable for Nick Smith Jr.? kind of struggled with this one, but I think the best player comparable here is Jamal Crawford, somebody who is not really going to be using their physicality or maybe as much, not quite as much the handles for Nick Smith Jr. to get separation to find their jump shot, but using the quick step, using their athletic ability to generate those separation. That is where we see some parallels with Nick Smith Jr. and Jamal Crawford. Also, we see with Jamal Crawford a player who was able to get that scoring touch as well off the ball with cuts, get himself open for three, but most of the time, it is trying to shake and bake the opposition. It is trying to generate your own jump shot. It is trying to generate your own shot in general out of isolation attempts, out of dribble attempts. And though Jamal Crawford was a prolific scorer, also saw some inefficiencies with his field goal percentage numbers. For the era he played in, that was fine. It was more than fine to play like that. But in the era we're in right now, it's less fine. And Nick Smith Jr. is not at the level of Jamal Crawford to score as consistently. So he has got a lot to work on. So is he a good fit for the Raptors? The potential's there. I mean, you can't ignore it. You can't ignore the gifted athletic ability he has and his ability to find jump shots. If you want to score and you're willing to work with this guy, like, this is an insanely intriguing prospect at 13th overall. Somebody who was expected to be in the top 5, top 8 of the draft a couple of months ago. He's fallen off quite a bit, but there's a reason he has his potential, and teams are not going to ignore it. But what they can't ignore is just the lack of production outside of scoring. Like, you just can't ignore that. The overall feel for the game, and it's just, I know there was the injury, it's just alarming, those field goal percentages. Efficiency comes with age, but man, you can make this guy 50 points more efficient on twos, and he's still extraordinarily inefficient on two-pointers. So there's a lot of work to do here, and if you have a lottery pick like the Raptors, you can be picky. We've covered a lot of players I like. I really like Cason Wallace. I like Kobe Buffkin. Moderately a fan of Jalen Hood-Schifino. I'm liking Bilal Coulibaly. Grady Dick could fall to 13th overall. I fully expect Nick Smith Jr. to be available at 13, and as much as the potential is there, I expect the Raptors to pass on him. Raptors fans, not many have been super high on Nick Smith, but I'd love to hear your comments down below. Do you think Nick Smith is worth gambling on with that 13th overall pick? You let me know in the comments. You let me know your thoughts, and you let me know your favorite draft prospect. Mine still remains Cason Wallace. He still has not been dethroned. But tomorrow's my day off. I'm back on Monday for more draft profile coverage. We're going to do Bilal Coulibaly. Might add in Grady Dick on the Tuesday there, but keep it locked with Amateur Hour Sports by subscribing to the channel. Hit that notification bell as well so you never miss out on an episode. And drop a like if you enjoyed this one. I know the draft profile videos aren't for everybody. I love covering the draft, and I love going into draft day with the best possible knowledge on all of these players, and I'm trying to share that knowledge with you guys. Hopefully you guys are enjoying. If you do, support Amateur Hour Sports, and I will see you again next time for another video on Monday.